Ever had a moment where you looked at your life and thought, wait, am I the bad guy here? No, seriously, have you ever wondered if you've been the villain in someone else's story all along? It's tough, right? You're just out here, living your life, minding your business, doing your thing. And then, bam, it hits you. That feeling when you realize that your actions, your decisions, your independence might have caused someone else pain. You didn't mean to, but it happened anyway. Ouch. As a Sigma female, you're used to walking your own path, not following the crowd. But what if that path was crossing someone else's in a way you didn't even notice? It's a hard pill to swallow, but here's the truth. Sometimes, being the strong, independent, no-nonsense woman that you are can come off as cold, distant, or even cruel to others. And when you realize it, it's like a gut punch. But the good news, once you see it, you can fix it. Here's how to spot the signs and take control. Okay, now let's watch things Sigma females do when they realize they're the villain in someone else's story. 1. You start questioning everything. The first sign that you might be the villain in someone else's story is when you can't stop replaying conversations in your head. You know the ones, those casual chats that seemed totally normal at the time, but now, hours or even days later, you can't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, something you said or did hurt them. It might have been something small, something you didn't think twice about when it happened, but now it feels like that moment keeps popping up, like an unwanted guest in your mind. The more you think about it, the more you start second-guessing yourself. Did I say something that came off wrong? Was I too blunt? Did I dismiss their feelings? And now you're stuck in this cycle of wondering whether your words cut deeper than you realized. What was meant to be casual and simple might have left them feeling ignored, unimportant, or even attacked. You didn't mean it that way, but they might have taken it that way. This is where the overthinking begins. You start to replay every conversation in your head, trying to find clues or hints that you messed up. You start going over the details. Did I seem too distant? Did I avoid their eye contact? Was I too busy thinking about my own stuff to notice they needed more attention? You ask yourself, was I too harsh? Should I have been more sensitive? These thoughts keep circling in your head, creating a storm of doubt. It's exhausting, but you can't stop yourself. Maybe, just maybe, you did mess up. Maybe you didn't handle the situation as carefully as you thought. And that's when it hits you. You weren't the perfect person you believed yourself to be. No, you didn't do it on purpose, but it happened. And suddenly you realize that in that moment, you became a villain in someone else's story. That feeling of realization is unsettling. You never intended to hurt anyone, but the truth is, you're human, and sometimes we make mistakes. You might have been so caught up in your own world, so focused on your own goals and independence, that you forgot to consider how your actions might be affecting the people around you. And now the guilt sets in. You feel bad because you didn't see it coming. It wasn't like you meant to cause pain, but the impact was still there. It's a hard truth to swallow, but it's part of growth. Recognizing that you might have hurt someone without realizing it is actually a good thing. It means you're aware. And awareness is the first step toward being a better version of yourself. The key here is not to beat yourself up over it. Yeah, maybe you messed up, but that's part of life. You can't always be perfect, and nobody expects you to be. What matters is that you see it, acknowledge it, and take steps to do better next time. Don't let that guilt consume you, but instead, let it teach you something important about yourself. If you're feeling like you might be the villain in someone else's story, it's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes. What you do with that realization, however, is what defines you. So take a breath, let go of the self-blame, and focus on how you can make things right. If you're vibing with this, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real talk. 2. You realize your detachment looks like disinterest. As a Sigma female, one of your defining traits is your independence. You thrive when you're on your own, doing things your way, following your path without needing anyone to hold your hand. And that's great, right? You're strong, self-sufficient, and you can handle things solo. But here's the catch. That detachment you carry around, That aura of being okay on your own all the time can sometimes be misinterpreted. To others, it can seem like you don't care, that you're uninterested in their lives or their feelings. And when that realization hits, it's like a punch in the gut. You didn't mean for that to happen. You were just focused on yourself, on your own goals, your own personal growth. But in the process, you unintentionally shut people out, and that can make you come across as cold or distant. You start noticing the subtle signs. People stop reaching out as much, or they start pulling back when they talk to you. At first, you might shrug it off, thinking that they're just doing their thing. But then, the uncomfortable truth starts to sink in. It's not that they don't want to talk to you. It's that your emotional distance is creating a barrier. You're so used to keeping to yourself that you don't even realize how much it impacts your relationships. You may have started with good intentions, believing that you're giving people space, letting them live their own lives while you do the same. But here's where the shift happens. When people feel like they can't connect with you or that you're too unavailable, they start to question where they stand with you. And let's be real for a second. Relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or family-based, thrive on connection. If you're constantly maintaining a distance, even unconsciously, it creates the illusion of disinterest. And that's when the problem starts. You might find yourself in situations where people pull away from you or express feeling neglected. You could feel confused, wondering why someone you care about seems so distant, even though you didn't mean to push them away. That's the moment when you realize just how powerful detachment can be. It's not just about keeping to yourself, it's about how others perceive that behavior. Your emotional distance, no matter how intentional or unintentional, can make someone feel unimportant, ignored, or even abandoned. And that realization doesn't feel great. You never intended for anyone to feel that way. You didn't mean to come off as uninterested, but here you are, realizing that your strength can sometimes be a double-edged sword. It's not that you have to change who you are. Being a Sigma means valuing your space and independence, and that's something worth preserving. But you also need to be aware that sometimes those qualities can create walls where you don't even realize they exist. And that's the key to shifting this dynamic. Recognizing that your detachment might look like disinterest to others. So, while it's important to keep your space, it's also essential to occasionally show up for others. Small gestures like a text, a quick call, or just checking in can go a long way in breaking down that wall of detachment. This doesn't mean you have to lose your sense of independence, but it does mean finding a balance between maintaining your personal space and making others feel seen, heard, and valued. If you've ever struggled with boundaries, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want more tips on keeping your space while staying connected. 3. You stop making time for people who need you. As a Sigma female, your independence and personal growth are at the forefront of everything you do. You've worked hard to get to the point where you can confidently say that you don't rely on anyone to get through life. You're strong, self-sufficient, and capable of handling anything on your own. However, in the pursuit of this independence, a pattern often develops. You start to prioritize your goals, dreams, and personal well-being over the people who care about you. And that's when the cracks start to show. At first, you might not even notice it. You're busy with your projects, work, self-improvement, and the countless other things that keep you moving forward. You're so focused on your own growth that you forget about the people who've always been there for you. Your friends, family, or loved ones. They need your time, your attention, your support. But Sigma female is so absorbed in her world that she doesn't notice how she's unintentionally drifting away from them. You find yourself brushing off invitations to hang out, saying, "I'm busy," more than usual, or even canceling plans last minute. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You're just focused on doing your own thing, right? But then, over time, the absence of your presence begins to create distance. The people who cared about you start to feel neglected, and that's when the problem becomes real. It's not like Sigma female wants to hurt anyone. She's just so caught up in her own life that she forgets how important it is to be there for the people who matter. But when you realize that someone who was once close to you is now distant or upset, it hits hard. You see the impact of your choices, and it becomes clear that you've unintentionally hurt someone by not being there when they needed you the most. Sigma female might start feeling guilty about it, questioning why she didn't make more time for those she cares about. But there's a deeper reason behind this pattern. Sigma females value their peace and independence more than anything else. It's easy to get lost in the comfort of solitude, where you can focus on your own needs without any distractions. But what happens is that, without meaning to, you neglect the people who need your attention, love, and support. Those little moments where you could have made time for a friend, listened to a loved one, or just been there for someone, add up. Eventually, the people who used to be a big part of Sigma female's life start to feel like they've been replaced. It's a painful realization, and it doesn't feel good. But this is where growth happens. Once Sigma female recognizes this behavior, she can make the conscious effort to change it. It's not about giving up her independence or losing her sense of self. It's about finding balance. By learning to create space for the people who need her, while still maintaining her personal goals and values, Sigma female can mend the relationships that have started to fade. It doesn't mean dropping everything every time someone needs her, but it does mean remembering that relationships are a two-way street. Making time for others is a simple, yet powerful way to show that you care. You don't have to sacrifice your independence to do it, but Sigma female does need to realize that sometimes it's okay to prioritize someone else's needs too. If this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's dive into the next part. 4. You start getting defensive. Sigma females are known for being independent, strong, and self-assured. They know who they are and what they want, and they're not afraid to stand their ground. But here's the thing. Being confident and self-reliant can sometimes turn into something else when others question you, your choices, or your behavior. When someone calls you out, the natural response might be to get defensive. You want to protect your space, your decisions, and your image. It's a reflex. After all, Sigma females are used to doing things their way, without needing anyone's approval. But when you're faced with criticism or feedback, your first instinct is often to push back. You might find yourself reacting without even thinking about it, defending your actions, your choices, or your intentions, even if it's not necessary. And sometimes, that defensiveness can cause more harm than good. It can make you come across as combative or closed off, even if that's not your intention. People might start to feel like they can't talk to you about their feelings or concerns without you immediately shutting them down. They might start walking on eggshells around you, afraid that you'll bite their head off if they point out something you did wrong. And that's not the energy Sigma female wants to project. You're not looking to push people away, but the defensiveness has a way of isolating you. It's easy to get caught up in wanting to be right, to protect your pride, or to defend your actions. But sometimes it's better to listen first. When you feel that rush of defense coming on, try to take a step back and ask yourself why you're reacting this way. Are you trying to prove something to yourself or to the other person? Are you afraid of admitting you might have made a mistake? Sigma females hate feeling vulnerable or wrong, so it's natural to guard against that. But growth happens when you allow yourself to be open to feedback. If you're too busy defending yourself, you miss the opportunity to truly understand the other person's perspective. That's when you realize that being defensive doesn't just protect you, it can distance you from the people who care. It can make them feel like their feelings don't matter, or like they're not allowed to challenge you. And that's when you start to wonder if you're pushing people away. The more defensive you get, the more you might notice people start to avoid difficult conversations with you, or they stop expressing their opinions altogether. You're not trying to silence them, but that's how your defensiveness can be perceived. The key to overcoming this is to practice listening without immediately reacting. Let people speak their truth, even if it stings a little. You don't have to agree with everything they say, but you do need to respect their perspective. Allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to admit that you're not always perfect, and that sometimes you might have done something unintentionally that hurt someone else. It's okay to acknowledge that you're not always right. Once Sigma female can do this, she can let go of the need to be defensive and instead foster stronger, more genuine connections. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger and more emotionally aware. By letting down your guard, you're showing people that you value their feelings just as much as your own. That's real strength. 5. You realize your honesty feels like criticism. As a Sigma female, one of your most valued traits is your ability to be straightforward and honest. You don't sugarcoat things, and you pride yourself on being brutally honest, especially when it comes to giving advice or offering your opinion. To you, being honest is just a part of being true to yourself and others. After all, you believe that the truth, no matter how hard it is to hear, is always the best route. But here's the thing. While your intentions might be pure, your honesty can sometimes be perceived as harsh or critical by others. And this is where the problem arises. You might not realize it, but when you speak your truth, especially in sensitive situations, it can come off as criticism, even if you don't mean it that way. You see, when Sigma female speaks her mind, she's used to being clear and direct, often without much filter. But in doing so, you might overlook the fact that not everyone can handle that level of directness. Some people might take your words to heart, feeling like they've been judged, criticized, or even put down. You don't mean to hurt them, but the way your honesty comes across can feel like an attack, even if it's just a simple observation or suggestion. Over time, you start to notice the impact of your words. People stop seeking your advice, or they become defensive when you give them feedback. They avoid conversations with you, fearing that you'll say something too blunt or harsh. At first, you might chalk it up to them being too sensitive, but then the reality sets in. You're realizing that maybe you've been too honest, too blunt, and it's causing people to distance themselves from you. The truth is, being brutally honest isn't always the best approach, especially if it's not delivered with care. While you might value truth above all else, others may need to hear it in a more tactful way. The way you communicate is just as important as the message itself. You start reflecting on your past interactions and realize that your honesty might have made others feel like they weren't good enough or that their actions or decisions were wrong. You never intended to make them feel that way, but sometimes the way you phrase things can make someone feel inferior or inadequate. This is a tough realization for Sigma female who prides herself on being authentic and transparent. It feels like you're being forced to tone down who you are, but the truth is, it's about being considerate of how your words affect others. It's about understanding that honesty can be communicated in a way that doesn't come off as judgment or criticism. The key here is to find balance. Sigma female doesn't need to change her core values, but she can learn to soften her delivery. It's possible to be honest without being hurtful. Instead of saying, "That's a terrible idea," you might try, "I see where you're coming from, but I think this could be improved." Instead of pointing out flaws, try highlighting the positives first and then gently offer constructive criticism. It's all about delivery. By practicing empathy and emotional intelligence, Sigma female can continue to be authentic without pushing people away. The goal is not to silence your truth, but to express it in a way that encourages growth, not resentment. Being honest is a gift, but how you give that gift matters. 6. You've become the person people avoid talking to. As a Sigma female, you've always prided yourself on being independent, self-sufficient, and in control of your own life. You walk your path, and you don't need anyone to tell you how to do things. That's what makes you strong, right? But here's the hard truth. Sometimes that very independence, that emotional distance you've cultivated, can make you come off as unapproachable or intimidating to others. And when that realization hits, it can feel like a slap in the face. At first, you might not even notice it. You're doing your own thing, living life on your terms, focusing on your goals and passions. You're busy building your empire, chasing your dreams, and feeling like you've got everything under control. But slowly, you begin to notice something strange. People who were once close to you, friends, family, even colleagues, start to pull away. They're no longer reaching out as much, and when they do, the conversations feel more forced or awkward. You might chalk it up to their own busyness or think it's just a phase, but deep down, there's this nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, it's something you've done. You start realizing that your emotional detachment, your need for space, and your intense focus on your own journey are starting to alienate the people around you. You've become so absorbed in your own world that you didn't even notice how much it was affecting your relationships. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, but your behavior is making others feel like they don't matter as much as your goals. The thing is, people need connection. They need to feel like they matter, like they're being seen and heard. And when you're constantly in your own bubble, it can come across as if you're not available or interested in them. It's not intentional, but that's how they're feeling. And that can be isolating, both for them and for you. You begin to notice that people are no longer coming to you for advice or support. They're avoiding deep conversations or sharing personal struggles. You've become the person that people feel like they have to walk on eggshells around. They don't know how to approach you anymore because they're not sure if you'll care, if you'll respond the way they need you to. They've started to see you as the unapproachable one. And let's face it, that realization stings. You didn't intend to shut anyone out, but somewhere along the way, you've done just that. You've unintentionally built a wall around yourself, and now you're the one left wondering where everyone went. It's a wake-up call that doesn't feel good, but it's a necessary one. The beauty of being a Sigma female is your ability to stand on your own and take control of your life. But the downside is that you sometimes forget how to balance that independence with the need for connection. Relationships require effort from both sides, and if you've been so focused on your own growth, you might have neglected the people who once mattered to you. But here's the thing. Realizing this is the first step toward change. You don't have to lose your independence or your personal goals, but you do need to recognize the value of connection and be open to it. You can still be the strong, self-sufficient Sigma female you've always been, but you can also learn how to be more present for the people who care about you. By making a conscious effort to show up, reach out, and make time for others, you can rebuild those relationships and stop being the person people avoid talking to. It's not about compromising your independence, it's about finding a balance between your personal journey and the people who matter most to you. 7. You realize you've been prioritizing your own peace over their feelings. As a Sigma female, maintaining your own peace is one of the most important things to you. You've worked hard to build a life that aligns with your values, where you don't have to rely on others to feel whole. You've crafted an environment where you can breathe, think, and thrive without interference. But here's the harsh truth that hits you when you least expect it. You've become so focused on protecting your peace that you've started ignoring how your actions affect the people around you. Your emotional boundaries are important, and you've worked hard to establish them, but there's a fine line between protecting your peace and becoming indifferent to the feelings of others. The more you focus on keeping your energy free of drama and negativity, the more you start to distance yourself from the emotional needs of the people who care about you. It's not intentional, of course. You're just trying to stay centered, to avoid unnecessary stress. But when you keep pushing your own needs ahead of the people who care about you, you're unintentionally creating a gap. You might find yourself ignoring messages or calls because you're busy or just don't want to deal with emotional conversations. You tell yourself that you need space to recharge, to focus on your own growth, to make sure your mental health stays intact. But the problem is, by constantly prioritizing your own peace, you're making others feel unimportant, neglected, or even rejected. And when that realization hits, it feels like a gut punch. You've been so caught up in your own journey that you haven't seen how your actions have been affecting the people who need you the most. You might have thought you were doing what's best for you, but in doing so, you've neglected to show up for those who needed your support, your time, or just your presence. And that's when you start questioning whether you've been a little too self-centered in your pursuit of peace. The truth is, protecting your peace is crucial, but it's also essential to find a balance. Sigma females thrive on independence and the freedom to make their own choices. but those same choices can sometimes come at the cost of others' feelings. You might have hurt someone without even realizing it because you've been so focused on keeping your life drama-free. The moment you realize this, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's also a chance to grow. It's not about abandoning your boundaries or allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by other people's emotions, but it's about recognizing that relationships require effort from both sides. Sometimes showing up for someone else means stepping outside your comfort zone. It means putting your own peace aside just for a moment to give them the support they need. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less strong, independent, or self-sufficient. It just means you're learning how to balance your need for peace with the importance of the people who matter most to you. So, the next time you find yourself choosing your own peace over someone else's feelings, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself if it's really worth it to keep pushing others away in the name of self-preservation. It's okay to protect your energy, but it's also okay to make room for the people you care about. Balancing both is the key to becoming the best version of yourself. 8. You realize you've been prioritizing your own peace over their feelings. As a Sigma female, your independence and ability to stand on your own are what make you, well, you. You've worked hard to create a life where you don't rely on anyone, where you get to set your own pace, make your own decisions, and keep drama at arm's length. Your peace of mind is sacred. You protect it fiercely because it allows you to function at your best and move forward in your life. But here's the thing. Sometimes you get so fixated on protecting your own peace that you lose sight of the fact that other people need it too. You may start to notice that, in an attempt to maintain your calm, you've unintentionally shut others out or ignored their emotional needs. The truth hits you when you realize that, in your quest for serenity, you've been putting your own peace first, at the expense of people who matter to you. You get used to making yourself the priority. When something feels off, or when you're overwhelmed, your instinct is to retreat, take a break, or escape into your own space. But what happens when someone else is emotionally drained, or they need you to show up for them, and you're too focused on your own balance to be there? This becomes a tough realization. It's not that you're a bad person or that you don't care, but sometimes the lines between self-preservation and emotional neglect can blur. In the process of protecting your peace, you start neglecting the feelings of others. It's easy to think that if you're not upset, you're doing fine, but that doesn't take into account the pain or needs of those around you. They might need support, and you could be the person who offers it, but your focus is so intensely placed on your own emotional stability that you miss their silent cries for help. Whether it's a friend going through a tough time, a loved one feeling abandoned, or someone simply needing a moment of connection, your desire to protect your inner peace might cause them to feel unheard or unimportant. And when you finally see this, it stings. It's a jarring realization to understand that in your attempt to keep things smooth and stable for yourself, you've inadvertently become distant or emotionally unavailable to others. But here's the thing. You don't have to abandon your peace for the sake of others. You can maintain your boundaries while also being emotionally available. You don't have to choose between one or the other. The key is balance. Sigma females often struggle with this because your self-reliance means you're used to solving things on your own, but when it comes to relationships, balance is everything. You can still prioritize your well-being without shutting others out. What you need is awareness. Awareness of when to lean into your own emotional space and when to extend yourself for someone else. This doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your peace or let others drain your energy, but it does mean you have to be present for the people who matter to you. Sometimes it's about making small sacrifices for others, like giving up some of your time or energy to show you care. It's okay to take a step back and let someone in, even when it feels uncomfortable. Your peace is important, but so is the well-being of those who love you. Finding this balance allows you to keep your independence while being a supportive force in the lives of others. Here's what happens next. You face the facts, take accountability, and shift the way you approach relationships. Know You're not going to change who you are, but recognizing your role in someone else's story, it's empowering, not a weakness. It's hard to admit when we've hurt someone, especially when we didn't intend to. But the first step to growth is owning your actions. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. Acknowledging when you've hurt someone, even unintentionally, shows maturity. It shows that you understand the impact of your behavior, and that's key to improving your relationships. It's not about feeling guilty, it's about understanding. Saying, "I see where you're coming from," or "I'm sorry I hurt you," doesn't make you less of a Sigma female. In fact, it shows that you have the emotional awareness to learn and adapt. You can still be strong, independent, and self-sufficient, but recognizing when you've caused harm is a sign of growth. Next, set boundaries, but with compassion. You've always valued your independence, your space, and your mental peace. That's crucial for a Sigma female. But boundaries aren't just about pushing people away. They're about knowing when to protect yourself and when to show up for others. You can still have your peace without being cold or distant. Protect your emotional well-being, but do it with kindness. You don't have to shut people out in order to preserve your peace. Be firm in your boundaries, but make sure those boundaries don't turn into walls. Relationships require mutual respect. People who care about you need to know you're there for them, even if you need your space. You can have both, your peace and connection with others. Be present. It's easy to get caught up in your own world, especially when you're a Sigma female. But at some point, you have to make time for the people who care about you. It's the little things, sending a text, making a call, showing up when it matters, that make a difference. You don't have to sacrifice your independence to show people that you care. Sometimes, just being there for someone when they need you most is all it takes to strengthen a bond. You don't need to be overly involved in their lives, but a simple gesture of support goes a long way. Reflect and adjust. Sigma females pride themselves on being brutally honest, and that's a good thing. But sometimes that honesty can come off as criticism. If you realize that your words have hurt someone, take a step back and reflect. You don't have to change who you are or sacrifice your truth, but consider adjusting the way you say things. You can still be honest while being more considerate of how others might feel. There's no need to lose yourself in the process of being more empathetic. It's about balance. The CTA, call to action. All right, if you've been feeling like you might be the villain in someone's story, don't stress. We've all been there. If you want to learn more about owning your Sigma power while still being emotionally aware, hit that subscribe button. Oh, and don't miss our next video. It's all about how to maintain your boundaries without pushing everyone away. Trust me, you'll want to hear it. Cliffhanger. Question. So, what do you think? Have you ever realized you might be the villain in someone else's story? Drop a comment and let's talk about it. And remember, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be aware.